Sky Howdy, and welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. And we are back, and this time we have returning from last episode, the main man from Bigfoot in Germany, and that would be Robert Boston, who is in fact Bigfoot in Germany, now successfully escaped back to the U.S. and got away from the monster and from the sauerkraut merchants and made it back here to the U.S. And on the other half of the screen, or the other part of the screen over here, we have well-known, many-time guest on the show, Mr. Robin McCray, the head of International Hominology of Sasquatch people.
I don't want to step on Igor's toes. I'm the assistant.
Yeah. Well, no, he's an International Hominology of Forest people. You're International Hominology of Sasquatch people.
Oh, okay.
A little bit different branch, same organization. You got North America. We're not stepping on Igor's giant toes. And speaking of things across the pond, Sasquatch-wise, and of course, Robert can talk about that for hours, days. Robin's been over there too. You had to go to a conference over in Siberia.
Yes. Yeah, it was fantastic. I have to say, I was treated so well over there. I really and truly was once I got to Siberia. Moscow was a little bit hairy. Like, I've never seen people
That's what I've seen. A lot of hairy Russians.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because Igor sent a car and driver to pick me up at the airport to take me to the next airport so that we could get the plane to Siberia. And they drive up on the sidewalks through the courthouse, the grass of the court. I mean, if they want out, they just drive wherever they want to go. They don't care. And so driving was a little bit frightening for me, but I was treated very well over there. And it was up in the mountains, of course. And I saw a couple of the Bigfoots that were over there. And of course, mine spoke with them. I still mind speak with the ones over there. It was really nice. We got to go down in the cave. I think it's Az's Cave, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Sorry. But it was incredible. Very, very nice. Trip of a lifetime for sure.
Yeah, the part I remember you telling me about is when you got there near the cave and you wandered off, and they first tried to mind speak with you, and you went, I don't understand what the hell you're saying. I don't speak Russian.
Yeah, they did because I'm like, okay, to begin with, let's be clear. Igor has tried since I met him 11 years ago to teach me Russian. I will never be able to do it. I want to do it. My heart's in the right place. I suck at it. Okay, I really do. And he's been infinitely patient trying to teach me Russian, and I'm no good at it. But yeah, I get to the opening of the cave, and I'd already seen a large black male that was running between the trees. And there was just an awful lot of people making our way down to this cave. And he kept darting between the trees. And I was trying to find Igor to say, hey, you need to come over here and take a look at this.
Yeah.
But it was like a photo op because all the reporters were there. I had no idea. This is how naive I was. I never thought, I thought what happened in Russia stayed in Russia. I wasn't expecting every major network, Wall Street Journal, anybody was going to be there. I didn't even think about that when I went. And so all these reporters were there and they're interviewing Igor, and I couldn't get him away from the reporters to show him where the Bigfoot was at. So we go down in the cave and they start mind speaking with me. And I'm like, I want to talk to you guys, but I don't know a damn bit of Russian. Please just go back to English. I can't do Russian. And they did. I mean, they can mind speak any language they want. But it was a riot because they were all just going, da, 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 da. I'm like, okay, now you're making me incredibly dizzy and I haven't learned a bloody thing. I don't know what you're saying. Yeah, it was exciting, and they all got in that cave and everybody took off to the far right side because there was a chamber back in there, and then there was another little alcove. Me, on the other hand, because I'm always the oddball, I went off to the left, and it was this little low area that had water that was draining through there. And I'm over there, and I'm finding just footprint after footprint after footprint after footprint. And on the other side is all the reporters and all these guests and all these people that went in there. They're all excited. They found a footprint. And they were going crazy over this footprint. And I'm looking at these ones over by where I'm at, and I'm like, there's literally hundreds over here. I finally went and got Igor after everybody had cleared out of the cave. I said, okay, now if you want to get pictures of some footprints, you know, that aren't trampled on by 1,000 people, come on over here. But it was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. And like I said, I was treated so well there. You know, the only people that weren't overly kind to me were actually our people. The Russian people themselves were wonderful.
Damn rude, obnoxious Westerners. You know, and the hilarious thing about the Russians is that they'll give you great hospitality, but amongst each other, they're like the crabbiest people on earth, and they communicate by yelling and flinging things at each other and whatnot.
Throwing things, yeah.
They do, but they were very good to me. I could not have asked for them to be any nicer than what they were. And they took great care of me. I mean, you know, we had translators there, which, you know, Igor was there, so that worked out better, but for me, but they had translators. You know, the food was incredible. The lodgings were excellent. It was wonderful. It really was.
Well, it's even what's amazing to me is that there was the general level of interest and whatnot that you could actually have some kind of a Bigfoot conference in Siberia.
Well, and the backstory on the whole thing was, at the time, I had just met Igor. A mutual friend of ours, Bob Daigle, introduced me to him, and he had come to my house, seen everything going on there and evidence that I had, and he ended up staying 10 days instead of 3 hours. And he said when he went back, he wanted me to come for the conference. And I'm like, okay. So I didn't know he was famous. I didn't know really anything about him. And I certainly never thought about press or anything like that. I mean, I had been doing this Bigfoot thing all by myself my whole life. I didn't know anything about that. And my son lives in Canada. And I said I was going to go to Russia. And he says, what do you mean you're going to Russia? And I said, well, I'm going to go for this conference. He said, Mom, you're just going to take off to Russia. Like, you know, I never went anywhere. I was always at home with the kids. And he's like, what is going on with you? And I said, no, Dr. Igor Borsev invited me. So he does the Google search on Igor. And I'm just thinking he's some nice guy that my friend knows, you know, and it's not a big deal. I didn't realize he was really a big deal. And so my son gets hold of me and he's like, Mom, this guy's famous. No, he doesn't even act famous. He's not famous. And he's like, no, he really is. This is a big deal. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, didn't know anything about it. So we get on the plane to Siberia and we're sitting there and I reach over and I punched him in the arm. And he says, what was that for? I said, you didn't tell me you were famous. And he looked at me and he gives me this, you know, shit-ass grin. And he says, you never asked.
Like, an Igor.
Yeah, and then we get off the plane and it's like all these flash bulbs going off. You know, I mean, I was fine once I knew. I just didn't expect it because I just figured, you know, it's just a conference on Bigfoot, and in the States at that time, nobody was talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, I'd spent a whole lifetime keeping it quiet, so I wasn't anticipating that, but it was fun.
Well, as far as that goes, in the United States, still currently, nobody gives a rat's ass. Nobody's paying any attention except for the Bigfoot crowd. Nobody else cares. They'll look at it, ridicule it, and then walk away. They won't even pay any attention to the evidence.
But you know what I'm finding is everywhere I go, if I'm with somebody that I've talked to or that knows that I'm into the whole Bigfoot research and the dogmen and all the cryptids and the ETs and all that, they will bring it up to outside people. And I'm finding out that everywhere I go, there's somebody that's had some type of experience. Yep. Everybody stays quiet.
Yep. I think part of the reason there aren't more reports coming out of Idaho and Montana is that they just aren't news savvy enough to realize that Bigfoot isn't considered a normal animal. And like people don't just normally see them all over the place like a moose or something. So they kind of don't report it because, like, well, yeah, you see them out in the backyard a couple times a year. What's the big deal?
Well, the other day, I can't remember what I saw it on some social media thing, and somebody said, well, I think they live like in Connecticut or something, and they're like, yeah, we don't have them there. And I said, oh, for the love of Pete. There's not anywhere they aren't. Like, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Hawaii. The Menahuni drove them off the island so they could have it for themselves. The Menahuni like those beaches.
Yeah. And it's just like, you know, you may think that they're not there because people aren't talking about it, but I promise you they're there.
Now, here's an interesting question that comes to mind. You know their capabilities, and some of them capable of going through portals. How far can they go exactly? Were the ones that Robert was running into over there in Germany local German Sasquatch, or were they actually ones from over here that were just like visiting?
Perhaps followed me over.
I would believe that.
They followed me.
Oh yeah, I would believe that in a heartbeat.
He started out in the Sierras having encounters there, and then he went over to Germany thinking, I'm not going to see any Bigfoot ever. First thing he sees, there's tree structures in the woods, and he's like, what the hell? I know what those are.
I mean, they've got them over in Germany anyway, but I mean, any of the ones that he would have had contact with here, they'd follow him in a heartbeat.
Why did they want me? Why me?
They think you're cute and adorable.
Oh, yeah, right.
They want to hug you and squeeze you and take you home.
They need
roar at you and zap you.
Exactly, yeah. You know, it's going to be interesting once you do get zapped, how you react to it. Because everybody reacts differently. Mm-hmm. You know, me, I get dizzy and hit the ground. My ex-wife, she projectile vomits, like instant, just blows it. It's crazy. I've seen people just go to sleep. I've seen people go into like, dazed and confused, completely glazed over eyes, catatonic. It's just.
So according to Papa Craig, when he was up here with us and he got zapped, like I said, he was right behind me. And he managed to amble back to camp. And then after about 20 minutes or so, he realized he wasn't having a heart attack because he'd actually had one before. So he didn't know what was going on exactly, but he went and laid down. And as soon as he got in the tent by himself and laid down, he got hit by the wave of terror. And I'm just sitting right next to the campfire by myself, fall asleep sitting in the chair. Meanwhile, he's in the tent 30 feet away getting hit with a wave of terror. But he was there for another 3 days after that, and he says it was still another additional 3 days after he got back home before he didn't feel weird and woozy and couldn't focus, and he was just confused the whole time he was there. And also, additionally, the camera, a lot of the stuff that he had filmed had been zapped off his camera and just wasn't even on there. It was, just screen lines across the screen or that kind of stuff. But still to this day, he can't remember the sequence of events. He can remember what happened, but he can't remember what order it happened in.
They seriously fried his noodle.
they zapped him good for some reason. I'm glad they didn't hurt him bad, but
I've had people next to me get just dropped to the ground. Like they literally lost all their faculties and hit the ground. I've had another friend of mine that was with me, and they had wanted me. There was two females that had babies, and they had the baby sitting in the middle of this big brush area. And a friend of mine was out in the woods with me, and she used to walk out in the woods with me every day. So it's not like they didn't know her. And they had asked me to go up to this bush and do a blessing for the babies. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm walking through the woods where they're telling me to go. I see the bush. I'm walking to the bush. Next thing I know, I hear my friend screaming, and I turn around, and she's like 20 feet behind. I mean, I didn't even know they dropped her. And she's screaming, make him stop, my head. And she's just like totally having a meltdown. And I got really, really pissy. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything for anybody. You need to stop it. Like, you knew she was out here with me when you wanted me over there. And so they stopped, and she got off the ground, but she didn't come any closer, but then in one of the times that I got abducted by the ETs, I came back and I didn't feel like I was zapped or anything like that, but it was like my brain was fully functioning on the inside. On the outside, I was on autopilot, and I stayed like that for 3 days. I have no memory of what happened. I remember watching the ship come down and thinking this is going to go bad really quick. And then I remember an hour and 45 minutes later. But I never got zapped. I never felt sick. I mean, nothing. It's just, it was weird. It was almost like I was tranced.
You know, like Bob talked about last episode, he got hit right in the forehead by an orb. And for a month after that, it was very strange. He was like seeing through the veil. He could see things we weren't supposed to be able to see. And he didn't really
Yeah.
go into that last time, Robert. Do you want to bring up some of that weird stuff that you could see?
Well, it is. It's like seeing through the veil, but during that month, honest to goodness, it was a lot like being possessed.
Oh,
There,
wow.
like I mentioned it, the last episode, that it was like having a really bad roommate in your head. I mean, it was.
No, and when we talked about this previously, the other thing is that during that time period until that stopped, for some bizarre reason, you deleted all your video.
Well, did I? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I deleted it, they deleted it, or what.
Yeah, well, somebody who had access to it, that may have been you.
Yeah.
And you had no intention of deleting any damn video.
No,
up
not
to the
at
point
all.
where you were hitting the forehead with this orb.
Yeah.
And
They'll
as soon as
delete
the
it.
orb
have to.
effect went away, you again had no intention of deleting video. And
No.
you were going,
It was a brand new camera.
what happened to this video?
And it was, the weird part is that I watched the video on the little side screen on the camera. It's there. Great. I got home to download it. It wasn't there anymore.
Uh-huh.
Just poof, gone.
See, I got a picture of a fae one time. A real good friend of mine and I were in Pennsylvania, and we weren't trying to get the photo. It just was one of those things that, oh, wow, look what we got. And they tried and tried to get that photo. And it was like, that game where they put the ball under 3 cups and you move the cups all around trying to find the ball?
Like
that was us with the stupid picture. We were like sending it to anybody and everybody trying to hang on to this picture because they kept taking it off of one phone. We'd send it to another one. They'd go and they'd chase it to that phone and remove it. We'd have it sent back. We were just sending this bloody picture all over the place, trying to make sure we could hang on to it. And I think they eventually got it because neither one of us can find it now.
Damn.
Put it on a flash drive, throw it in a lead box. Problem solved.
Yeah. I have a picture of a female carrying a baby, and she's like semi-cloaked. Like you can see the outline of her, you can see the eyes, the mouth, you can see the infant, you can see her holding the infant in front of her, but you can look through her body and see through it.
Yeah.
And I had that thing for like 2 years. I had that picture. I still have it. They never did take it, but 2 years.
We've shown it on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like in the Dollar Tree. And one of the ones I'm really close to is like, mom, because they call me mom, because my kids would call me mom, and they thought that was my name.
That's your name.
That's my name. And they either call me mom or they'll call me by a tribal name they gave me. And he was like in a panic, and I said, what is wrong with you? And it was so startling because he was like freaking out. And I was just in the middle of the store, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? And all these people turned around and looked at me. So I walked outside, and I'm like talking to my head. I'm like, okay, what is the problem? And he says, the picture. You have the picture. I said, I have over 14,000 photos in my, in my stuff. Which picture? Can you be more specific? And he said, the one where she's cloaking with the baby. And I said, what about it? He says, you have it. I said, I've had it for 2 years. What is the trauma? Like, it's been 2 years. He says, just be careful who you show it to. And I'm like, okay, 2 years later. No, we have a real good sense of time. Yeah, they were.
Yeah, and then how much longer was it after that where he got back to you and went, oh, now it's okay, you can show it. And you're like, what the hell were you get hold of me in the first place for?
I sat on that photo for years because I was like, my God, are they going to like on Christmas Vacation, and they swing through on the ropes and the cops are going in through the windows. I'm like, I'm going to show this picture and they're all flying in the windows at me. And after a while they said, you haven't showed anybody the photo. I said, you told me not to let anybody see it. And they're like, oh, you can let them see it. Okay.
Like, why did you get hold of me in the first place and tell me not to show anybody?
Oh, it's like makes no sense. Makes no sense. But they've been full of their asses lately here. I don't know what is going on. It's like Ringling Brothers Circus here.
Well, like you were saying earlier before we were on air, you were just taking the not usual route home the other night, and there was one of them hanging out by the road that you saw.
Well, yeah, broad daylight. I mean, we're talking like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, I mean, it's not like it's dark out or even semi-dark. And it was a road that I never go on because it takes me out of my way to get where I'm going. And all of a sudden, I just feel like this overwhelming thing that I have to go down this road. That I have to take that way. And I'm thinking to myself the whole time, why? Because it's going to take you 15 minutes longer to go that way. But okay, whatever. My granddaughter. Yeah, my granddaughter was with me, and she was playing a game on her phone, so she missed it completely. And I was going to say something to her, but at first, to be honest with you, I thought, oh, look it, because it was a little bit at a distance. I mean, I'm traveling towards it, and it was on all fours. And I thought, oh, look it, there's a deer. Deers aren't jet black. Why is that a jet black deer? And I mean, it's the middle of broad daylight. And I'm like, this is the weirdest deer I've ever seen. And it stands up on 2 legs and starts walking. And it gets all the way to the side of the road and stops and turns its head and looks at me. And I'm like, that's why it's not a deer. It just kept on going in the woods. And I'm like, okay, then. But now my daughter, she was going to work the other day. She left at like 5:30 in the morning. And of course, our road, like we live like 3 miles back in the woods. So you get on our road and it's like a 2-track. So she's driving down the road and she saw he was probably only 5 foot, so he wasn't very old, but he was sitting in the middle of the road, literally, in the middle of the dirt road. And she saw him sitting there. And so she kind of slowed up and she's thinking to herself, you know, what's out in the road? And then he stands up and he starts walking, and then he'd stop and turn and look at her, walk a little bit longer, stop, look at her, walk a little bit more, stop, look at her. And he went over towards the side of the road, up the trees, and then started walking through somebody's backyard. And she said this particular one was walking more like a gorilla. And she said, but he kept stopping, and then he'd turn around and look at her and just stare at her. You know, it didn't faze her. She grew up around him, so it wasn't like it, you know, freaked her out or whatever. I think she was kind of relieved because she used to see him all the time in Michigan.
How tall was he?
She said about 5 foot, a little over 5 foot. He wasn't very old.
He was just a little shit. So yeah, you know what I call that? Bad Sasquatch parenting.
Yeah, watch your children.
I'm going to change my lights here.
Why are you letting the poor kid hang out in the middle of the road? That's bad Sasquatch parenting.
Yeah, you don't let them out on the road. But in Michigan, they walked uncloaked around the yard all the time. Didn't matter if it was broad daylight or nighttime. You know, she played the clarinet in school, and she would go sit on a blanket and play the clarinet, and they'd come out of the woodwork just to listen to her play the clarinet.
Oh, I bet. They like music.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, they would literally walk around. And so it's not like she hadn't seen one before, but since we got to South Carolina, she's seen a ton of eye shine. But she hasn't seen any that were, you know, that crystal clear. So I think she was kind of relieved because her fiance had seen one around here. I see him all the time. My husband sees him all the time. So she was like, I'm the one that used to see him as a kid, and I'm the only one that hasn't seen one since we moved.
Why am I getting left out of this all the time?
Yeah, she's not now.
I want to be scared again, too.
Well, and my best friend in South Carolina, bless her heart, her husband passed away 3 or 4 years ago, so she lives alone now. And she never knew that they were there. And I was at her house one day, and she was talking about how lately the dogs are just going off all night long. She's got a lot of dogs, too. And I'm out in her yard, and I'm like, have you been out here barefoot?
Yeah.
Have you had company over barefoot? And she's like, no, why? And I'm like, take a look at this. And I showed it to her, and she said, that's huge. I'm like, yeah, look at, here's one, and here's one, and here's one. And so now she's used to
Here's what your dog barking at.
Yeah. But we had an animal rescue, and she had these 2 dogs that were there for the rescue. And they turned on her one day, and they almost killed her.
Uh-oh.
The one was, I mean, literally, and I'm not joking, almost killed her. They were the one had one leg shaking the crap out of it. They had been acting funny for a couple days, and she was so nervous of these dogs. She had a pistol, and she had it in her pocket when she was out cleaning kennels and stuff. She had them loose in the backyard running around, and they turned on her. and she couldn't even try to shoot at them because they were so violently shaking her legs. She was afraid she'd shoot herself. So she's firing the gun up in the air, and the dogs weren't even reacting to it. And blood is just flying everywhere. I mean, it took her almost a year to heal. It was that bad of an attack. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these dogs came to a screeching halt, whimpered, and sat. And she was like, what just happened? You know? And then they single-filedly walked themselves all the way into their kennel, all by their little selves.
Oh, come
and
on.
normally to
Exist?
yeah. And normally to get him in the kennel was like pulling teeth. And she called me, and she was in shock, and she's like, there's blood. I can't stop the bleeding. I don't know what to do. Da, 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 da. So I said, okay, fine. So my husband and I head over there, and I asked the Foots, I said, what went on over there? And they said, don't worry. We stopped it. We zapped them. And when I got there, I said to her, I said, how did you get them off you? She said, I don't know. She said, I knew I was going to die. I knew I was. She said, there was no doubt in my mind that's what was going to happen. And then all of a sudden they whimpered and just completely went into a sitting position and didn't budge, and then turned on their own and walked into that kennel. And I said, well, you got some help, you know, but they love her because she's, you know, she's a very kind woman. She's very gentle, and she's loving with the dogs, and they watch her all the time. She's got handprints all over her house. My God, if you ever dust that thing for prints, it'd be hysterical. She had the one day she walked into her kitchen at like 4 a.m. to get something to drink, and there was a youngster looking in the window. You know, but they really,
Constant observation.
They really like her, and I think that's probably why. But by when this had happened, I had let her know, you know, that they were there, and she'd put different apples and stuff out for them, and so they were friends with her. And I think that was probably why. They probably heard her screaming and came out of the woods, but something definitely stopped them because they were going to kill her.
Yeah. What's all the screaming and growling and shooting about? This isn't normal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Attracts their attention. Well, you know, and if nothing, even if they didn't like her, it's like, well, if she gets mangled by dogs, you're not getting any more apples. You guess we'll have to zap the dogs and save her.
No, she went out, like, she was laid up for quite some time, and when she finally was able to walk again where she could drive and that, she went out and got him a huge bag of apples and took them out and put it in the woods right next to her property, and they literally ate those in about 2 seconds flat.
Yeah, I bet they got the
reward. So she'll call me and she'll be like, there are gargantuan handprints all over my vehicles. I've gone through car washes. I have scrubbed them. I can't get the handprints off. And I'm like,
yeah, that grease on their skin.
They've got the oil base to it. You can't get it off. I mean, I've gone through professional car washes and can't get it off.
That's probably one of the reasons they don't get cold in the winter. They got that grease all over them. It keeps them warmer.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Shadow, when I was standing next to him, for anybody that hasn't heard me on before, he's a white male. His hair, and I joked about this at the time, but it's the God's honest truth. He reminded me of Arthur Fonzarelli on Happy Days because his hair was slicked back. And you could see the grease in it. It was slicked back. And his whole face was all hair, little tiny hairs, including his eyebrows, his eyelashes, everything. But when you came to the hair here and around the face, it slicked back. And it looked like it was greased. It really and truly did. I'm like, good God, Fonzie's back, and he's got white hair now. You know?
Yeah, Fonzie's back as a Sasquatch. Oh my God, Squatchy days.
He was I had seen him cloak. He was the first one that was standing in physical form next to me, and then all of a sudden cloaked. You know, like I knew they cloaked because I would walk. And in Michigan, you got snow, you know, and you'd see the footprints being made and nothing they're making them.
Yeah.
Or I would see footprints in the sand or on the leaves or whatever. So I always knew they did. And there were times that I would see them and all of a sudden they would phase out. But he was like, you know, within 10 feet from me when he did it. And he was all in physical form. I saw every square inch of him. And then I hollered to my son because he was walking towards me and there was a male that was on the ground. He was doing the belly crawl through the grass, and I didn't want him to scare my son. And then there was a third one that was on the other side standing in the tree line. So I was like I hollered to my son, and I'm like, I want you to come straight towards me. You know, there's one crawling in the ground. You don't have to be afraid. Just come straight towards mom. And when I yelled for that, he cloaked. He was standing right next to me. It must have scared him, and he cloaked.
Now, it seems to me like the ones you grew up with up there in Michigan were a lot more brazen. They just basically would let you see them. And, not including the ones that
That and
tagged
what?
along when you moved down to the Carolinas, because some of them came down there too. But the
Yeah,
ones down there, as much as you got presence of them all over the damn place, they're a lot more secretive. And, like,
they
sometimes you
are.
only
They're
see
not
parts
nearly as,
of them. Or,
they're not
they'll
as fun.
be cloaked and walk across the yard and forget that, like, only part of them is cloaked. Or
Yeah, that was funny. That was pretty funny. I mean, we see random body parts like going across the yard. They don't
I've
completely
seen
close.
that once, and a swinging arm walking
Yep.
down the meadow.
Random,
Just an arm.
yeah.
that'd be very
But
disturbing.
It is
the
very
ones,
disturbing.
the ones in Michigan were like up close and personal. 2 o'clock every morning, knocking on the house until I would go outside, and I'd go out and I'd sit with them. And they'd chatter or they'd walk around me or whatever, and I would interact with them in the middle of the night. The crazy person out there in the pajamas and slippers without a flashlight was me. And and then during the day, it would be nothing to look out the window and see them walking around. The one time it was really cold outside, and I looked out and I saw a youngster. He was all black and he was walking across the front of the drive. Well, my son had wore black jeans and a black long sleeve shirt that day to school, and he had black hair. So I'm like, what is he doing out there without a coat, for God's sakes? It's like 22 degrees out, and I'm like having a fit, and I'm hollering out the window at him thinking it's my son. And my son comes out of the bedroom and he says, why are you yelling at me? I'm like, I thought he was outside. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, so now we know what that is. But they would walk around uncloaked. I mean, they were so much more up close and personal. I could have given them anything and they would have taken it. The ones here are forever. We have to have this now. Please go get this. And I can't tell you how many, middle of the night runs my husband and I have made to the store, because if they didn't have something, life would end. And then they don't want it because they don't want to touch it.
Yeah. Well, again, this points to one of the things that I like to bring up, is that they're not entirely homogenous. If you're in one area and then you go to a different part of the country, there's a different tribe of them there. They may communicate, they may interact a little bit, but they may act a lot different than this other tribe that you're used to dealing with.
Well, the part of it for me, from what I've observed, is that each clan, the leaders and the clan leaders in charge of the clan, they've got there's an overall basis of laws and everything for all of them, but each clan
Has their own rules.
has their own rules too. And, like the ones here, now they don't have a problem, toe dancing around on my roof all night long, or peeking in the windows, or leaving gifts on the front porch, or, running through the yard or whatever. They don't care that you see them, but they don't do the up close and personal like the other ones do. The other ones, I'd say, okay, what do you guys want me to put out for you tonight? And they tell me. I'd go put it out, and it was a matter of minutes, and they came in and they took it, and everybody was all happy. The ones here will tell you, or you can put food out, and it's really rare that they're actually going to take it. Like, they got me one night, it was 8:30 at night, and they wanted turmeric and ground ginger. Yeah, and because somebody
Same
was
thing
sick.
mine wanted.
Yeah, and I'm like, I do healing on them. Why do I got to run to the store? Can't I just do my thing and be done with it? Why do I have to run to Walmart in the middle of the night? But they begged and they needed it, and they had youngsters that were sick, and I said, well, I can do healing on them. No, we need the ground ginger and the turmeric. And I'm like, okay. I get dressed, I drive to Walmart, I buy this stuff, I come back, I said, where do you want me to put it? Well, they had a certain spot that they sat in. I said, okay. I go and I put it out there. For 2 days it stayed there. And I said, you needed it, why didn't you take it? We don't want it in the thing that it was like a glass container with the shiny lid on it. They didn't want the container that had the shiny lid. And I said, where do you want it? And they said, pour it on the ground. I said, it has rained for 3 days. If I pour it on the ground, it's going to disintegrate.
Yeah, it's going to be ruined.
Yeah. I'm like, you won't have it. Just take it in the jar. My other guys, oh my God, I could give them shit on a shingle and they'd take it if I said it was good. didn't matter what.
On the shingle.
Yeah, it didn't matter
Well, the
what.
ones I got up there, they seem to be just fine with if it's in a bag hanging on a tree, it's all good.
You don't even want to know how many containers they've and plates the ones in Michigan took. I made cookies for the kids one day, and I had this huge plate of hot cookies sitting on my countertop. And the kids are in the bedroom watching a movie. So I took a small plate and I put enough for each of my 3 kids to have 3 cookies. And I took it in there, gave it to the kids. They're like, thanks, Mom. You know, I come back out in the kitchen, the whole damn plate's gone.
Yeah.
I'm like, did the dog get the cookies? And I'm looking around and the dog was outside. And I'm like, okay, that eliminates the dog. But the plate itself was gone. Like they didn't just take the cookies, they took the whole plate. I just bought that plate.
Cookie monster.
And so,
So
I asked who had it, and Sintai popped up and she said she had it. And she's making a smacking noise. I said, what are you doing? She said, we're eating the cookies. I'm glad you like it, but could I have the plate back? And she says, no, I like the plate.
See, it was a cookie monster. There's the second sighting of the cookie monster.
Exactly.
But
actually, I heard a report from somebody else that was baking pies, putting pie in window to cool.
Yep.
And pie disappeared. And when the other person got home and said, what happened to pie? Confused person that cooked pie said, Bear reached in and grabbed it.
Yep.
What do you mean Bear reached in and grabbed it? Yeah, it picked the pie pan up and walked off with it.
Yeah.
Like, honey, that wasn't a bear.
All right, I have a question for everybody that listens to this. What the heck is with them with Parmesan cheese?
What the heck is, yes.
Really? They like that?
Yes.
Okay. My friend Janice Carter was staying at the house with her and her daughter. And every time we turned around, the Parmesan cheese was gone. We would go out and buy like 2 or 3 containers of it, put it in the fridge, and the next day it was gone. I mean, nobody goes through the Parmesan cheese. Like, it was just gone. You couldn't find the container. You couldn't find any resemblance of it. You find muddy prints on the refrigerator.
Well, that must have been Janice.
Oh, my God. But, I mean, they would take, and Janice and I would look at each other and just crack up. And we're like, oh, my God, what is with Parmesan cheese? They're obsessed with Parmesan cheese.
The good stinky cheese.
Yeah.
Stinky cheese. That could be it. Now, I got a question for Robert. Now, when you started out doing this, your first things that were happening to you were over in the Sierras, correct?
Yeah, in California.
Did you see any kind of paranormal, anything connected to that while that was going on?
You know what? There was only one time that something weird happened up in the Sierras. And you have to realize I was looking for either a caveman or, an ape at that time. So I wasn't really, keeping an eye on, looking
On
for
anything like that, yeah.
or looking for anything weird. But I was standing next to a teepee structure, big one, about 30, 40 footer. And I had shot an azimuth because, I'm old school. I don't even know how to operate a GPS.
Yeah.
Something that's like, plugs into your motorcycle or your car. So I used topographical maps and lensatic compasses. And I had shot an azimuth and walked a good solid 15 miles up away from the car. And I'm standing next to this teepee structure, and I go to shoot a back azimuth so I can walk back. And my compass is just like spinning like hell. And I'm looking at that and going, what the heck? And then I turned around, I looked at the teepee structure. I walked about 20 feet away and it stopped. I was able to shoot the back azimuth. But, that's kind of freaking weird.
Okay, Robin, I know you got things to add to that. Go ahead.
I found this out by accident, guys. All right. If you go in the structures, especially the teepees, it seems more prominent in the teepees, but you can also do this with the arches. Go to the highest point, put your hand up there, and I would say a good majority of the time you will feel an energy flux where the energy changes. There have been people that have actually put in, not myself, but people have taken and put a light bulb and held it up there, and there's enough energy in it to turn on a light bulb.
Holy cow.
And yeah, and I had a very dear friend of mine in Michigan, and I went out to his property multiple times, and he had a lot of the arches. And one, it wasn't overly tall, maybe 4 foot tall. And I said to him, I said, I just want you to take your hand and just put it under there. I want you to see if you feel anything. And he says, that feels so odd. I said, a lot of the times people don't realize it because you don't physically see it, but there is an energy flux in them, and they're created like that. And he did a videotape of it and was explaining, he wanted me to explain on film what I had just told him. So I did, and when I did, he got on tape, and it looked like this thing just shot out of it. It was just a dimensional thing. It wasn't anything major, but he got it on film. It took like one blink of an eye, and boom, it came right out of that hole. So they do use some of his portals, which I already knew. When I was in Michigan, like 75 feet off my front porch, they had brought in these massive logs and made this rectangular shape, and they had built all kinds of structures in it, and each one of them did different things. I mean, you talk about Woo Central, it was crazy. But the teepee structure, they would go one at a time into this teepee structure and vanish until they were all gone. And then it'd be a couple hours later, and you would hear them come right out of that same area, and they'd all be chattering again. And I took Igor, and I can't remember who else went with us. Can't remember if it was Bob Daigle or not. And I took him to a park where they had a lot of Bigfoots in there, and the guard that used to guard that park, the Sasquatch guard, he had gotten used to me going in and out of there, so he didn't give me any trouble. We used to chase people out of there when I got there, and he was going to try to, and he didn't chase me, he just got grumpy. And I said, I have permission. And he says, you don't have permission? Yes, I do. I have permission to be here. Ask Earthkeeper. Earthkeeper will tell you I can walk here. And he's always let me in after that. So I took Igor there, and he had some kind of meter, and he put it up in there, and he said, look at this. Look at the change in the meter when you put it up there. I said, yeah, I know. So he thought that was pretty exciting, but it does. And I mean, I've walked in some of these teepees, and you can get really disoriented and really dizzy in them.
Robert's favorite researcher on my team, Michael Matt, got video of one of those weird things happening this summer when he was walking back from the teepee, and he's filming with his cell phone, and there's a low arch, and he has to duck to go underneath it, and his cell phone stops.
Yeah.
And he gets about 20 feet on the other side, and he starts filming again. He goes, I was just walking underneath that arch, and my cell phone quit filming for some reason. Now I'm going to finish the rest of my walk out to the road.
Pat and I went in that same park where that guard was at, and a friend of mine, her name is Lauren, and her and I went the first day. We went out there. We walked into that park, and it was like 3 p.m, completely light out, but it was really heavily wooded in there. Like once you got in there, it was so dark you couldn't see. And we don't even know, like we lost time in there. Like we thought we were in there for like 15 minutes. And next thing you know, it's 100% dark. She's standing next to me, and it's so dark I can't see her. And we're like, we can't even find our way out. Like we really could not find our way out. And we had walked down a path. So you would have thought you just walk back up the path. We couldn't see the path to get out. So we're like, well, that's all right. We've got flashlights on the phone. We turned the flashlights on the phone, and those phones shut off immediately the second those flash came on. And I knew there was 3 Bigfoots on the side of me because I was talking to him, and we saw the eye shine. And then on the other side, other ones came in, and they were killing it sounded like they were killing a raccoon or something. And they never, there's this, whatever it was they were killing is screaming bloody murder. And all we see is eyes shine, and you hear them wrestling over there. I mean, it was quite a commotion. And that was probably not even but 50, 60 feet from us. And Lauren and I are trying to find each other. We can't see each other. It was that dark. And we can see the eye shine on the other side. And I'm talking to them, and they're going, you need to leave. You need to leave. We're trying to hunt. And I'm like, trust me, nobody wants out of here more than we do. Okay.
Yeah.
We're
all in favor of leaving.
Yeah. We're not trying to interfere. We're not trying to bother anybody. We just simply can't get out of here. And so they're trying to get us to move forward without scaring the crap out of us. Lawrence, I said, if you'd at least let us put the light on our phones, we don't want light. I said, yes, but we can't leave without it. So Lauren's phone came on. soon as that light hit on, she took off like a bat out of hell. She left me in the dust. I'm standing there. I can't see her. And I'm like, Lauren, where are you? Where are you? And she's like, I'm up here. Follow me. I'm like, I can't even see you. So she finally stopped and turned around with her little light and came back. She got back to me and they killed the light again. And I'm like, I just want out of here. Like, you can do whatever you need to do. I would just preferably not want to be eaten, and I would prefer to have light, you know. But they never hurt us. They never touched us. They never tossed a rock. They never did anything. They were very nice, but they were very happy that we left. Yeah. And the next day, we brought my husband, and I said, we're going to go back earlier in the day because I'm not getting stuck back there. So we went back at 1 o'clock. Same thing happened all over again. I mean, it was like ridiculous. I'm like, from now on, we're going at 10 in the morning because I'm not.
What the bleep? Yeah. Weird anomalies reported in conjunction with them. So it sounds like, you know, Robert, you had like the vast majority of everything paranormal that was going on all started happening when you were over in Germany then.
Yeah, it did. I started noticing a few weird things. Well, the EMF pulse, the EM pulse that burned up my camera.
Yeah.
You know, that was that was weird. Where the heck did that come from? You know, and I'm having rocks thrown at me, so I know I'm not alone. And and then just poof, you know.
Well, as far as that goes, you know, stuff we were showing in the last episode, you got video of it, and you're like, oh, 1640, harmful. I'm in the middle of the woods. Where's all this electric coming from?
Exactly. You know. The highest reading I ever had was over 1,800 millivolts.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was just like, my head was jello. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, that was the first thing. And I, you know, like, well, where the hell did that come from? And then I get the EMF detector, and sure enough, I start getting all kinds of crazy readings off of tree structures and such. And because it was directional, being, you know, watch the numbers start to fade down, and I would start pointing it in different directions and watch it go back up again. I'd step forward towards that, and all of a sudden it's, you know, spiking like crazy again. There was obviously one standing around me, like next to me, cloaked, and decided to step back when I saw the nice bright yellow box going beep, beep, beep. So,
we got a researcher here in Montana that's on exactly the same page. He's got an EMF meter, and he'll go up to the same area over and over. Usually just sits in the vehicle with it on. And he says you can tell when they're getting near and they're cloaked because the meter starts going off.
Yeah, I can feel it in the air, and it's not very comfortable. It always gets me pretty on edge.
Yeah.
Especially within certain parts of that forest over there. But yeah, it was, you know, it's like static, a lot of static in the air. But yeah, that was that was interesting, because then you know, I think I'd probably been out maybe 4 times, and I had seen some weird stuff in the video. I had seen some stuff with my own eyes that just like, well, wait a minute, maybe we're not chasing a monkey, or, you know.
Yeah.
So, okay, fine. Wherever the evidence leads is where I'll go. And I made that an open declaration while I was standing in the woods. And when I did that...
Oh, God, did you say that out loud? You shouldn't have done that, Robert.
All kinds of crazy stuff happened.
Oh, God.
The thing, though, was that I would get out there, and I was actually doing it as an experiment. I would make a proclamation of what kind of evidence I was specifically looking for. Like, you know, today I'm looking for, you know, tree structures that have changed, or whatever, just anything. And every single time without fail, that's exactly what I would get on the camera. It was
the reactive thing. You know, we only did that one time
after I was already out there.
Right. No, we did this one time, and it was surely because we were just joking. It was me and Mike. Everybody else had left. We were there for part of one remaining day and a night. Then we were going to pack up, leave the next day. Everybody else already left because the weather was lousy, right?
Right.
And we're like, well, we'll make one more walk around tomorrow, and it looks like they're predicting weather continued lousy. It'd be nice if you guys would leave a nice big track somewhere near camp where we could find it, and we don't have to walk very far out in the woods. Yeah. So next morning I get up, I walk across the road, I take a left, I go about 40 feet, there's a drainage ditch there, and on the far side of it, there's a gravel embankment with an 18-inch track right in the middle of it.
There you go.
Conveniently. Right there. I asked for it. That's the point I'm making. It's like, well, geez, maybe if you guys just ask these guys what you're looking for, you'll actually get to find it.
Yeah, if you're open to it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That was pretty stunning because up until then, we hadn't found a track within a mile of camp. And after that, we started finding them all over the place.
You asked for it.
Yeah.
What you asked for.
No, last time we were up there, they had a juvenile that was right across the road that left like 4 or 5 of them right in a row. I filmed that.
Yeah, maybe that's what some of these folks that claim they want to see one ought to do. Go out in the woods and just say, hey.
Hey, I'm out here to visit you guys.
Yeah.
Jump out in the open. Let me see you. Who knows? Maybe they will.
and
maybe you won't have a heart attack and die on the spot when you actually see one jump out in the open.
Yeah, that would freak me out.
Oh, I know they're up there. I know they're following me around. I catch them on video. It's still not exactly like I really want to see them.
Right.
Robin was giving me hell about that. Oh, they're giving you chances to see them. And I'm like, you don't understand. I'm the only Bigfoot researcher on Earth that's not trying to film a Bigfoot. I'm not trying to see them or film them. I'm looking for all the evidence of things they're doing and the structures they're building and their tracks and how are they making a living. And no, I can't do that. Now that I've been up there too much, and they're just going to step out in the open and let me film them, apparently. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Bring him all the food they ask for. Like, he'll get hold of me and he'll say, okay, I'm going to be up there. Ask them what they want this trip. So I'm like, okay. So I'll ask him. And I always tell everybody, I try to be a good puppet for him, He's a good puppet. He always brings them what they ask.
Yeah. What do you guys want? Okay, I'll bring it. Fine. That's worth it to me. Well, it's I'm doing the same thing with them that they're doing with me. They're studying me, I'm studying them. We're deciding if we can trust each other and be friends. And at this point, we've pretty much decided, yes, we can trust each other. They're not going to rip my head off, and Duke's not going to try and trick them and get them on video or something unless they want to step out in the open.
They're studying us, but we're studying them. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like we all go out there and we're all staring at each other. We go out in the woods to look for them, and then we come in our house and they come up to the house and look in the windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trade-off.
Yeah, and from their standpoint, it's like, well, why wouldn't they be interested in my group? Because we're so non-aggressive. We don't even have weapons with us. We're walking around in grizzly country not carrying weapons with us. Like, how much more harmless do you want us to be, you guys? That's pretty much the limit right there.
Well, the kids used to look out their bedroom window at night, and all my kids always had TVs in their room, and they had cable, and they'd be in there watching TV. And one night the curtain wasn't closed all the way, and the boys just happened to turn around and look out in the yard towards the wood because they heard a noise, and there was like 3 of them sitting like Indian style. You know how you cross your legs?
Right.
Sitting like that on the ground, looking in the window like they were at a drive-in movie theater. I'm like, well, let me get popcorn. I'll put popcorn outside.
Yeah, well, as Bear from the Bigfoot Outlaw said, he was absolutely right. We are their entertainment. My theory is that the more actually entertaining you are, the more they'll like you. So try and be entertaining.
Well, Pat and I were asleep one night, and I looked at the window closest to his side of the bed, and it was all blacked out. And I'm thinking, the floodlight out front's out. So I looked to the other window, which is the farthest one away from the bed, and all the light shining through. And I'm like, well, the floodlight's fine. Why is this blacked out? I looked over, and it's one of the ones that I'm really close to. He came here from Michigan. And he's like, the top of the window is 10 feet off the ground. And he's hunched down and looking in the window. and the whole window's blacked out. And he kind of looks at me, and I see this, look kind of like a toothy grin. So I'm just laying there. So I poke at Pat. I said, get up. And he said, what's the matter? Are you okay? I said, yeah, you entertain him for a while. I'm going back to bed. I'm tired. Like
You
Pat's like, are you freaking kidding me right now? He looks over, and the window was all blacked out, and he just started to try to reach for his glasses to focus on it, and he walked away, and all of a sudden all this light comes peeling back in. They go and sit under the window, and they wait for the cats to get on the windowsill, and then you'll see there's a couple of white ones out there that do it a lot. The black ones do too, but the white ones do it a lot. And they'll bring their arm up like this, and they hit the back of the window screen. They sit underneath of it. They just raise their hand above their head, whop the window screen. The cats go just soaring through the air, scares the crap out of them. And they're out there laughing their ass off. Just crack up. I mean,
it's one of the reasons I like these guys. They got a great sense of humor. That is hilarious.
Well, all the bedrooms,
cats.
yeah, all the bedrooms are upstairs in my house except the master. The master suite's on the bottom. And outside my bedroom door is the sitting room, and there's 2 big windows in it. So I had my door open. I was sitting on the bed doing something, and all I see are these cats getting flying through the air across the front of my door. And my husband's going, what the hell? I went out there, and he's like, this big white hairy arm just came up and smacked the screen. So the next night I'm sitting out in the living room, same thing. Big old white arm smacks the screen. Cats go flying, freaking out, screaming bloody murder.
Yeah, I know enough people that have direct interaction with them, and Kevin Lang had Glag for a friend and all this kind of stuff. And this is something that keeps coming up a lot that I'd like to mention to everybody in case there's any doubt. They do think it's hysterically funny when they scare humans.
Yes.
They will scare humans just because it's hysterically funny. If they think they're going to get that fear terror reaction out of you, it tempts them to scare you.
Oh, they'll crack up. They will deep belly laugh.
Yep.
I tell you what, we had.
And meanwhile, you think it's some kind of hostile, aggressive. Oh my God, Bigfoot tried to kill me. No, Bigfoot just successfully noticed that you're a wuss, and he figured he'd just have to make a couple little noises, and you crap your pants and run away.
We had Nawaka come flying down the side of the house because there's 2 on each side of the property. There's this huge tree line, and you're talking like 30, 40-foot pine trees and all these scrub bushes and stuff. And they had it all gutted out, and they had made tunnels in it. And her son, Zerky, would go in there and play. And Igor was in the bushes that during the day. He was visiting, and he was staying at my house. And he was in there looking around and seeing what he could find. And I'm like, you know what? She's going to get mad because her son plays in there. You need to come out of there. And he's like, no, it's fine. And I'm like, also copperheads hiding all that mulch. I'd really be happier if you came out, but you're going to piss them off. No, it will be fine. And I'm like, I'll put a memo out that says no copperheads can bite you. But in the meantime, she's going to be pissed. Get your butt out of there. So he came out finally. So Janice Carter and I are standing on the porch that night. And it was like all hell broke loose. Man, Nawaka come flying down that tree line. All I saw was this massive, like salt and pepper color hair Bigfoot come running through there, and she dove in there where Igor had been sitting, and she shredded the whole inside of that. And it was like, I don't know if they, and I know they've done this before where they take the tails off the rattlesnakes, and it was like the whole bush erupted like 9-10 feet off the ground with rattles.
Oh,
I mean, she was pissed. She didn't do anything to me. I mean, I didn't get zapped or anything. I mean, she was fine. She was just mad, and I knew she would be because he plays out front all the time. He comes up on the porch because I have food I put out for the feral cats, and I've got these glass panels around my door, and I can't even tell you how many times I've seen his black head through those glass panels as he's reaching up there and grabbing all the cat food.
Speaking of the tunnels and the bushes thing, it's one of the first things when I moved into this area and got in contact with the local people that were interested in the subject. Native lady named Rachel took me to an area about 4 or 5 miles downriver from here in one of the backwaters. It's kind of low and swampy and stuff. Really big, thick bushes all over the place. Guess what's in the ones right next to the drainage? Tunnels.
The blackberry that was over there in Germany that used to sit between me and Bubba. There's tunnels.
Yep.
Yep.
They
Yeah,
do.
these are about 5 feet high, something on all fours. It was Sasquatch size, could go motoring through there real easy.
Blast right
They
on through.
had the house that was next to mine in Michigan, one of the houses, they had tunnels, and it probably went a good quarter of a mile, like bushes, because it was all woods back through there, and it had all these farmers' fields, and they had just these scrubbly, bushes that were through there, and they had taken all of them and arced those bushes around and anchored them underneath, and it was a bloody tunnel. And I know darn well they would go through there, and it would give them complete coverage. Nobody was going to see them from either side.
Yeah, that's
And
what I'm saying. This was not natural. Somebody
so
had
we
actually
found all kinds
rearranged
of
these
hair
bushes and made a
samples
tunnel
in
there.
there, and footprints, and
And then the other thing is sometimes you hear people going, well, there was a thicket right next to camp, and I don't know how anything could get through there and not make any noise because it was impassable. Well, did you look and see if like maybe they had a tunnel in this thicket that seemed to be impassable from your side? You know?
Multiple times I've run into that over there.
yeah. Well, my best
and that's the other thing too. Well, if it's an 8 or a 10-foot tall Sasquatch, it couldn't be walking through there. Hey, dude, they go on all fours.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, people don't realize it. My best friend Geraldine, the one that had the dogs that attacked her, and they stopped the dogs from attacking her, she has like a carport in front of her house, and she has 2 vehicles out there, and every night she hears something out there, and it sets her German shepherds off, and the dogs just go crazy.
Those
The
poor
other
dogs.
night she did it.
And they have
She
a
got
very
up.
specific tone in their bark too.
Oh yeah.
The terror
And she
tone.
got up,
Yeah.
and she said, she got hold of me the next day, and she said, I think I saw one. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I looked outside to see what was going on out there, and I saw this upright black figure walking between the cars, and then she said that thing was gone in a flash. She said it was so fast I couldn't even believe it.
Yeah.
Robert, weren't you the one that was talking about that poor dog that was guarding that beer and broth place out in the middle of
Well, it was
nowhere that had the giant structures obviously right next to it?
Yeah. There was it was actually a pretty nice restaurant that had a patio seating, and the road that it was on was a Roman road that had been built, God, thousands of years ago, that went off through the forest. Directly across from that, there was this house that had a pretty high fenced in yard, and a dog that was just completely freaking psychotic. And as I walked
I
past,
can't imagine why.
yeah, right. As I walked past it, there's a huge X structure leaned up against the back of the house and onto the fence. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, now I know why the dog is a nut. God.
We've got certain ones that the dogs know, but boy, you can tell immediately if it's the kids playing around out there, the Bigfoot kids, or if it's different ones that come in, because there's like 4 or 5 clans that wander around here, because the whole tone of the dog is different. 100% different. And like, they love my white Pyrenees. My husband has a Great Pyrenees, and they absolutely love her because she's white, and they've played with her since she was little, but they'll go get stuff now and they toss it into the backyard with her, thinking that they're playing. And then we've got all these dogs that we've, rescued and stuff anyway, but she's their favorite. And I have a chocolate lab that they had me save, and so they like her as well. And I'll go through every day and I walk through that backyard to make sure there's nothing out there that's not supposed to be there, because they're forever throwing stuff over the fence. And I went out there one morning and I looked, and everything was fine. Nothing was out there that wasn't supposed to be there. I walk in the house, the dogs are out there playing. I turn around and the Pyrenees is carrying around a 2x4. Like a freaking 2x4.
Oh, it just fell out of the woods over the fence. And, that happens all the time.
Well, I told him, I said, I need like a 2x6 because that would really replace the board you guys broke. So if you're going to toss it over, get the right size. But yeah, she had an actual 2x4. I mean, I'll go out there and there'll be pairs of leather boots tossed over the fence, flower pots from God knows where. I mean, you would be amazed the crap that they put back there. We had these stakes that marked the septic tank. And area the dogs can get to, the septic tank isn't around it. They can't even get to where those stakes are. And I looked out there one day and here's the Pyrenees. She's carrying around this piece of wood. And I'm like, where in the world did that come from? I go out there and I'm looking, I'm like, God, this looks really familiar. Like, where did it come from? I look over, it was from the septic tank. They pulled it out. It was one of the markers for the tank and tossed it over. There's no way that dog could get to that. That septic tank is like 15 feet from the fence. There's no way in God's green acres she could have gotten the steak from that. I mean, I went out back behind our house. Janice and I did and found a flower. Went next door to my neighbor. I said, are you missing a flower pot? She said, that thing disappeared 6 months ago. I said, it was behind my house. She said, well, there's no way it can get over there. I said, yeah, it can. She's the one, that I warned her about the foots, thank God. She does really well with them. They don't bother her. Like, she sees them running around the yard and stuff, but, she's got a good relationship with them. I was like, this is what you don't want to do. This is what you can do. And it worked out really well.
Now, part of the issue with where I know you got portals and other weird stuff going on where you're at too, Robin, but part of the issue where Robert was at over there in Germany is that there was a lot of other than Bigfoot stuff going on. And one was the others. And then the other one was the little people, which you're seeing like way too much of that going on. What the hell's the deal with that?
And in fact, I kind of classified them as the others as well. But yeah, I don't know, man. Depending upon which area I was in, there could be anywhere from 50 or more lined up along a tree line, when I would first get out there. And it's like, quite a few of those didn't even have like legendary names or attributes that I could say, okay, well, that's a leprechaun, or, they just.
That looks like a gnome. That could be a pixie,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's like I can't even identify what the hell is that thing.
I think they all just came up together.
Why is Fred Flintstone sitting on that log? That one's at the worst.
Yeah, but I think it's like all this paranormal stuff just pales around together because it's like a freak show here. I mean, it's like, oh, wow, you're. Yeah.
Honest to God, it reminded me of Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, and I get people tease me, and I've had several people tell me my house they call it Skinwalker Ranch, and I'm like, nothing bad goes on here. I don't have anything trying to hurt anybody. I've got enough energy bubbles around this place. Where I had our friend Sunny, when she came, she drove and she didn't know I had done energy bubbles here. She pulled into the property and she said, what did I just drive through? And I said, what do you mean? And she said, you pull off the road and you drive in, and she said, you can feel yourself going through this wall, and then it's nothing but peace. And so, I mean, they all get along, but it's a freak zone here. I mean, I've got portals with heads coming out of it. I've got pictures of a lizard man. I've got pictures of this thing with a pointy hat and pointy ears and a pointy nose.
There you go. What color is the hat?
Really. I've got, little ET prints all over the place. Little, that looks like some weird little poodleish dog that kind of is like phasing in and out. This blob head hanging around a tree, cat people, I mean, ETs. It's just crazy.
But I think it's phase in and out. They were actually listed in the Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual. They're called blink dogs.
Are they? This thing, it wasn't very big. It was like a poodle size, but it was standing in the back of the property with this humanoid little thing, and it didn't. I mean, I've seen little people. Critchemy's a little person, and he goes back and forth through the portals and the dimensions, and he's a trip and a half. He's sweet, but he's a trip and a half. But this thing was probably, I want to say, not quite 3 feet tall.
Really low.
And it had like, and it had like an egg-shaped body and a bloated head, but these long, spindly arms, and it was like greenish color. And it had this little weird dog that phased in and out. It looked like a dog. I don't know what the hell it was, but that's what it looked like. But I just think that once you have any of these things, whether it's the Bigfoot, and I could be wrong, I don't know, I'm not an expert, but I mean, whether you have a Bigfoot or a dogman or a kangaroo, you get anything paranormal around, and it's like, oh, paranormal at her house, the freak show, let's go. You know,
Yeah, there you go.
Woohoo, paranormal party. Woohoo, let's go to Rabbit's
but
house.
but they all feed off energy. They're all energy based. And the more energy there is, the more that come. And I think that's what the big draw is. I don't even think they necessarily want to be together, but the more there is, the higher the energy level goes, the higher the vibrational level goes, and they all gather to feed off it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong. That's just, my own thoughts on it because I have no way to prove it.
Yeah, unfortunately, no way to ask them, but yeah.
I mean, you can ask them, and it's, anybody's guess if you're going to get told, and then who knows if you're getting the right answer, because they're not going to tell us everything, that's for sure.
No, it's against the rules.
Yeah, God forbid.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Then they lose the edge.
Yeah. Well, they got us like 9 ways from Sunday. Just about any,
All of them, even the lower dimensional stuff is ahead of us. I mean,
They got most people convinced they don't even exist. That's the first major trick that you need to play in order to hide. Well, get everybody convinced you don't exist.
But you know what? I don't even think they convinced anybody they don't exist. The government convinced everybody they don't exist.
That's what it is.
No, it's an atheistic, secular humanist science that convinced everybody that there's no such thing as paranormal. Don't look over there. Look over this way, where we're going to show you lots of numbers and vague, vague theories that our ideas are right, that we can't really prove anything. And obviously, we know everything about the universe because over 80% of the matter is still missing, and we call it dark matter and dark energy to cover up for the fact that our theories are completely wrong.
Yeah.
And then we've been lying to the people for years and years and years.
Exactly.
Years, yes.
I mean, but really, it's like, I love it. People that say the paranormal doesn't exist. Okay, then obviously I don't exist because I've never known anything but the paranormal. I mean, I'm sure there's a regular, normal world out there. I have no clue what that's like. Like this stuff started when I was a toddler. So it's like to say that there is some type of world out there that's not paranormal, I have no clue what they're talking about.
Growing up, I had all kinds of weird crap that happened to me.
Yeah.
A haunted house, seeing UFOs, et cetera, et cetera. I was 42 before I actually saw one, but I'd had at least 2 other interactions. But what growing up and seeing ghosts in the house and stuff like that, come to find out that was kind of a normal thing on my mother's side of the family. That went back many generations. So
my mom could always talk to spirits, but she never had any other abilities. I mean, that was as far as it went.
Right.
Talk to spirits, that was a given. She always did. I think probably still does to this day. But I'm the only oddball.
Yeah, as far as I know, there's nothing paranormal on either side of my family.
Yeah.
They're all boneheaded Germans that don't believe in any woo-woo.
Well, my kids have got abilities. They choose not to acknowledge them, but they have them. My youngest has the hardest time with it because I think she's probably, her and my one son have got more abilities than the rest of the kids. And my son is like, it's almost like he's blanked it all out. He doesn't remember a lot of what he went through with all, and nothing overly bad. But my daughter, on the other hand, she remembers it all. She remembers, seeing at Beltane floating heads floating across the room and rolling over, watching a movie, and all of a sudden there's 3 ghosts next to her bed trying to talk to her. And she's like, my mom's across the hall. Go that way, go that way.
Oh, God.
And she's the Bigfoot and the Dogman and the baby Bigfoots, and all these things. She remembers all that. It's very clear in her mind. But she also knows what I've gone through. She also knows I've almost been killed a few times doing this work. And she wants no part of it. And they don't understand she wants no part of it. She has a lot of abilities. She doesn't have as many as I have yet. It doesn't mean she won't, but the big
never know what she's going to develop later on.
That's the thing, because you don't get them all at one time. It's not like you're 18 and you get a card that says, here you go. They continually evolve, continually, get more. I don't think you ever stop getting them. I think it's just a continuation throughout your life. The problem is they want her trained, and she wants no part of it, and that's her choice. Yeah. She accepts that they're real. She accepts that they're there, but she knows what I've gone through. She knows the things that, that I've gone up against, and she's like, I don't want that life. Well, I don't want her to have that life either. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel very blessed that I have the life I have, but I've almost been killed for the life I've had, and I don't want that for her. I've got an X on my back with the bad stuff. Oh. The good ones love me. The bad stuff wants me dead. And it's like, I don't want that for my kid. And the Foots are like, it's time. Why haven't you started training her? And I'm like, she doesn't want this. I left to go do a conference in Michigan, and they would not leave that kid alone. It was one thing when I was home, nobody bothered her. I went to Michigan, and she's like, Mom, all night long, somebody was grabbing my leg, or somebody was tapping my shoulder, or somebody's talking in my ear. And she's like, if it's not a ghost, it's a Bigfoot. I mean, I came home and Mom was on a rage. Let me tell you something. And I found out about it while I was in Michigan, and I went ballistic. I mean, you can mind speak no matter where they're at. You don't have to be there to do it. I still talk to the ones in Russia, and I was not pleasant. I was not nice. And as soon as I got mad, it immediately stopped, and it had already stopped by the time I got home. And then I got home and I was even madder, and they haven't bothered her again, but that's her choice to make. And the truth is, I don't want her in it. And I mean, Bob, I think you'd agree with me on this. This stuff is not easy. It's dangerous. It's one thing to everybody wants to see the Sasquatch, and that's all well and good till it's not anymore.
Right.
Until you're editing somebody else's video and entities are attacking you while you're doing it.
Did you do better after I got rid of them that night?
Yeah, thanks.
Not a problem. I got your back. It was it was really a lower level entity. It was like turn it into crispy critters and it was gone.
Yeah, you barbecued them. Well, first and foremost, everybody needs to quit saying first and foremost. That saying is totally dead. It's been so overused. It's like you're not even whipping a dead horse anymore. You're running it over with a tank for the third time. Quit saying first and foremost. There's your first lesson.
93% of all statistics are made up on the spot.
Yeah. And 76% of all people know the statistics can be warped to prove whatever you want.
Anything you want.
Yep, 76% of people know that. So anyway, we're running a little bit long here, so we're going to go here shortly. Was there anything that either of you guys wanted to add in before we wrap it up?
No, I just did. I'm going to tell you something. After you had me call Bob that night, I had so much fun talking to him. We didn't talk really long.
Oh, no, over an hour.
Yeah, I guess it was. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Well, considering Duke and I will go for hours and hours and hours talking, But I really enjoyed it because like I said, I always tell everybody this, I'm not an expert. I don't know it all. I don't claim to. All I can talk about is what I experienced and what I believe. But it was so great because I felt like we shared the same beliefs on a lot of this stuff. And we had a lot of similar experiences. And I always find it really interesting when, you're talking about different areas. And these things are still going on.
Yeah, still going on.
Right on.
There were so many of them in that one tight area. And it was very strange is that I could go just a couple kilometers downhill. It's the exact same forest. It's the exact same terrain, etc. And there's nothing there. It's like, what the heck is this? Why
there's
there?
Energy source where they're at, because I know they hold up where the energy is the heaviest. And I sound like a broken record, and I know it, and I'm sorry, but the fact is the fact. They stay where the energy level and vibrational pull is the strongest. That's why you find them by the ley lines. So there's got to be some kind of an energy source that's stronger in that area.
Well, across the street from that area is an old folks home, but other than that, I don't know what there possibly could be.
Not a lot of energy there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
well, you know, at one point that was the magic lake with a portal in it that you guys had the war over, and then
Yeah.
they filled it in and made farmland out of it. And how much you want to bet portal's still there? It doesn't matter if there's a lake there
Yeah.
or not.
Probably.
Well, and you don't. There could be a vortex there.
Yeah.
If the vortex is spinning the correct way, you're going to have all the good energy, and it's going to be really high energy. Now, some of your bad stuff will come in and flip it. Because I've gotten called into areas to correct the vortexes, and they flip it and they start spinning it the wrong way, and basically it's pulling all the crap and all the nasty stuff out and putting it back out.
Yep. Then it turns into Washington D.C. It's a horrible thing.
Pretty much.
Well, the other thing about where the lake used to be, that's where the substation for the entire village was there. With I think there was 9 huge transformers and massive cable as big as my wrist with no insulation on it, just exposed to the air.
Oh God, there's another reason for him to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where
They
I
put
found more
people-
different stuff, different things there, right next to that substation. I mean, orbs to little people and big ones too. It's just
They
crazy.
used to go in Michigan. We had this transmitter box for the power company. And they would go, if you walk down to where that box was, because I lived on a private drive and it was all dirt. And if you walked up the road to where that transmitter box was, you saw nothing but little footprint, or not little, but big footprints all the way around it and muddy handprints all around it. And they went down there one night, and I knew they were down there. They're actually relatively quiet at my house. And I thought, okay, it was still kind of early, so I wasn't really worried about it. And when I drove down the road to go do something, I saw a couple of them darting in the woods. I come back home, and it was not an hour later. There's so many down there messing. They blew that sucker. I mean, they blew it. The entire road was out of power, and they caught it on fire.
Nothing like good old EMP, right?
I know.
Dirt.
I didn't realize that they had done it. I knew they were down there, but I didn't realize they caused it until I was asking about it. And they said they were sorry. And I said, for what? And they said that you have no lights. And I said, well, it's not your fault. And they said, yes, it is. I was like, okay. They said, we were just get energy from our people. And I'm like, pull it from the ground. You know, it's an Energizer battery, for God's sakes. You're the one that taught me how to do the energy work and pull it from the ground.
That's exactly what it is.
It is.
The Earth spinning on its axis is a giant flipping dynamo battery.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, it's the basis for energy work. If you're tired, if you're lethargic, go outside, take your shoes off, get your feet in the grass, and
It's cold right now, but
yeah. Well, okay, I've done it on the snow. I mean, if you're that bad, we're that tired, and pull it from the ground into your body.
yeah.
And it works. I mean, if done correctly, it actually works.
Well, if you could hear the earth, you would hear the dynamo hum, and it wouldn't sound very much like the Zappa song. But we got to go, you guys. Love both of you. Thanks for being on the show. If everybody wants to check out stuff from Robert Boston, Bigfoot in Germany, his channel is back up on YouTube. So you can go check out at least some of his videos are up over there. And Robin, you guys all know where to find her. She shows up on shows all the time. She's probably going to be on a panel discussion with me over on Spaced Out Radio about a month from now.
Yep,
So you can look forward to that. We're setting up the panel discussion. We'll find out who all makes it for that one. So, you never know. You guys should show up. It would behoove you to show up and check out that show when it happens. And meanwhile, don't forget, Christmas is coming up and you need presents. And boy, do I have them. Go over to teespring.com/stores/world-Bigfoot-Central. And you will see an amazing variety, a plethora, an array of swag, unlike any that has ever boggled your eyes and mind before. So go forth, enjoy, purchase, give to your friends, tell them that you support their endeavors to find Bigfoot and or at least watch the really good shows about Bigfoot on YouTube. And everybody else out there, I hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving, and make sure that you are all being safe. Be kind to everybody. Pay it forward. Safety first, last, and always. Do not punt the puck, Woodgies. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't flip off the mountain giants. And God help you, whatever you do. don't hug the Wookiees.